Good morning, everybody. It's a beautiful day. Beautiful day. It's the first Monday in June. It's the first Monday in June, June 3rd, 2024. God is so great. Thank you, God, for allowing us to see another day. Welcome back to the Daily Dose, the number one daily morning mastermind for those trying to elevate and grow in your professional, personal, spiritual, entrepreneur lives, man. Let's hop right into it. Let's make this a great month. So we have our verse of the week. This week we're going boom, Matthew chapter 21, verse 18 through 22. And it's really one verse in here that's the main thing, but I wanted to highlight the whole a couple of verses before that just to give context, man, because we got to have context when we're reading the Bible. Otherwise, we're not going to know what's going on. Boom, Matthew 21, verse 18 through 22. Early in the morning, as Jesus was on his way back to the city, he was hungry. Seeing a fig tree by the road, he went up to it, but found nothing on it except leaves. Then he said to it, "May you never bear fruit again." Immediately the tree withered. When the disciples saw this, they were amazed. "How did the fig tree wither so quickly?" they asked. Jesus replied, "Truly I tell you, if you have faith and do not doubt, not only can you do what was done to the fig tree, but you can also say to this mountain, 'Go, throw yourself into the sea,' and it will be done. If you believe, you will receive whatever you ask for in prayer." So that last verse is the main thing, and I want to kind of stay on that faith and that belief vibe that we was on last week. Just remember, you have to believe what you ask for. You have to believe that you're gonna receive it. You have to expect it, right? You have to live with the expectation of your prayers being answered. We've been conditioned at a very early age to think that you know the saying like, "Oh, it's too good to be true," right? Right, and so when things start to just start going way too well, we kind of psych ourselves out of believing it. But we want to make sure that when we pray for something to happen, we believe that it can and will happen, and we're believing in God. Believe you will receive whatever you ask for in prayer. Right. So just want to make sure we remember that we got to develop a strong, super strong belief system. That's the only way we can grow. That's the only way we can scale. That's the only way we can maximize our lives. Now we'll hop right into the business topic for today. We're going to be talking about projecting future financials. In business, you got to understand exactly where you're trying to go, where you're at right now, and where you were a few years ago, right? And the only way to understand that and put that together, we're talking about, like I said, projecting those future financials, making sure that we are staying in line and making sure that we are aligned with the market, our business, and everything that goes into it. Number one, start with your history. Go take a look at your past years, profit and loss statements, your balance sheets, right? Understand like what were you bringing in 3 years ago? What were your expenses 3 years ago? 3 years, 2 years, 1 year. Start with that, right? Because we need to know the history in order to project where we go to the future because you'll kind of see trends in your business, right? If you have been doing this correctly as far as keeping track of your expenses and income and everything like that. So you want to start with that so you can have a good baseline of how your company has been doing over the past 2 or 3 years. Then you want to learn what your industry benchmarks are. In your industry, what is the average profit margin, right? Is it 5%? Is it 10%? Is it 20%? Right? What's the typical customer acquisition cost? Right? What is the typical annual revenue for companies in your business? And you want to base that off also the size of the company and how many years you have been operating. Learn those industry benchmarks so you can now you have your history, then you have what the industry standards are, right? So now you get a good sense, okay, where you are and where you are compared to the market. Next, you want to deep, dive deep into your revenue streams and your KPIs. Identify every single type of revenue stream that you could possibly have in coming into your business, right? And what are your key performance indicators that let you know you are on track and on pace to achieving the revenue that you would like, right? So make sure that you completely understand your business model. Uh, Make sure you're opening up all the possibilities for yourself to make money in each different avenue in your business, right? Your business, you might have four potential revenue streams, and you want to make sure that you are allowing yourself the opportunity to receive that income and to leverage that. Next, we want to make realistic assumptions for sales and revenue based on the history, based on the industry standards, based on your business model, your revenue streams, and your KPIs. Let's start to make some realistic assumptions for sales and revenue, right? And you want to do three versions of this. So, and this is specifically for sales and revenue, right? So you want to have an optimistic version, like if everything goes perfect. You want to have a pessimistic version if things were to go horribly wrong, and then you want to have a realistic version, right? So you want to create three different versions for assumptions for your sales and revenue. You want to do the same thing for your expenses and your cost of doing business, right? Create three different versions: optimistic, pessimistic, and realistic, right? And then lastly, your funding needs, right? How much money, how much capital do you need in order to grow, right? How much capital do you need in order to expand your business by X amount of percent, right? So you want to make realistic assumptions for all of these things so that you can go ahead and start to establish that baseline of, okay, if based on based on the history, based on the industry standard, based on my business model, my revenue streams, okay, I should be able to do this in my sales and revenue. My expenses are this, right? And I need this amount of money moving forward to make sure that I can keep growing the business. Next is two ways that you can do kind of a forecast, right? So it's just putting all of this stuff together. And you can go, it's called bottom up, where you estimate the individual line items from starting from the expenses and costs, and then you go up from there. And then you have the top down. It's going to be a high level forecast, mainly looking at, okay, your goals for the future, and then breaking it down on how to get there, right? So there's two ways that you can do that when it comes to making these assumptions, right? Want to make sure that we understand. Now, create your cash flow projections. That's putting all of this stuff together, making sure that you understand, okay, based on this, based on my expenses, based on history, based on what I'm doing right now, in the next year, I should have X amount cash flow. So it's just combining all these information to help us to understand where we can realistically expect to be at in the future. If we don't have no expectations of where and how we want to be able to move forward, then we won't be able to move forward. We'll just keep doing the same thing over and over again. So we have to have a plan for our future financials, right? It makes so much sense for us to be able to do that, right? Um, because we need to do it. In business, all the top businesses do that. They know what they are going to expect uh in the future. That's how they can have these shareholder meetings. That's how they can have stocks on the stock market, because they have an estimated idea of what they're going to be able to make. And they can and since they have that idea, they can understand when things aren't going according to plan, right? And it's way deeper than just saying, okay, I'm going to make $500,000 next year. It's so much deeper than that. You need to understand all of these things that we just talked about and understand how you're going to get there and create a roadmap for yourself. So yeah, projecting future financials is super important, right? So want to make sure that you do that. Want to make sure that you get that going so that you can have a great understanding of where your company is headed to. For the self development, man, super important topic today. We're going to be talking about overcoming addiction, or you know, overcoming having an addictive personality, right? It could be one and the same, or it could be two separate things for you, but they kind of go hand in hand with the steps that you need to um, be able to get over it. Number one, identify your triggers, right? What causes you to succumb to that addiction, right? What causes you to get there? Is it because it's easy to access? Is it because certain things happen in your life? Then boom, you do this. Is what are those things, right? That are your triggers that make you or that influence you and make you feel like you need to, you know, go to wherever that is, right? Or if you have an addictive personality, what are your triggers like? Why do you overly uh do things, right? What makes you want to overly do whatever it is? Number two, be honest with yourself. Like, have that conversation. Look in the mirror, like, hey, bro, you tripping? Like, hey, bro, like you need to get yourself together to make sure that you are being the best version of yourself. Be honest with yourself. Understand, like, hey, man, okay, I understand. I do this. I need to get better. I need help. I need to do things differently. Right? This is not having a great effect on my life. So I really need to make sure that I take some steps to become a lot better. Number three, you want to find alternative healthy activities, right? So you need to be able to replace that with something that's different, but also healthy and healthy mentally, healthy physically, healthy spiritually, however you want to put it. You got to replace that activity with something healthy. And number four, I wanted to make sure I put this up here because it's so important for for us to understand that self improvement. Really, we have to tap in with God to be able to do it. Right? I know we talk a lot about the practical self development, but at the end of the day, we have to pray. We got to ask God to help us to overcome this stuff because we can't do all of this stuff in our own strength. We need God. We need God to be able to help us. We need God to be able to and just be there for us and make sure that we're doing everything that we need to do in order to be successful. Right? We have to. Next, we want to, like I said, we're gonna pray and you're gonna try fasting. Right? Fasting from whatever that is, short increments of time so that you can build up that strength. You can build up that discipline muscle that you need in order to be successful, in order to overcome that addiction. Pray and fast. Next, you want to build that support system. You got to have people in your corner that's going to help you that you can call, like, hey, man, I'm about to do this. And they'll be like, no, bro, don't do it. You got to have that support system in place. You got to surround yourself. Maybe you have to remove yourself, right? Addition by subtraction, right? You might have to remove yourself from certain situations so that you are not uh, influenced or triggered to even do that, right? Whatever it is. And then most importantly, we just have to learn to say no. We got to, take a stand, set the boundaries against ourselves, right? We have to learn to say no. It's difficult, but it can be difficult at first once you start saying no to even other people. And then, of course, saying no to yourself is hard, but we have to. We have to, in order to make sure that we're doing the best possible thing for ourselves, in order to make sure that we are aligning ourselves with our true purpose in life, and to make sure that we have the discipline, to overcome things. We don't need to be walking around just having no discipline at all. We can't say no to nothing. We just always going for anything and everything. We have to learn to say no. And then we need to develop a relapse prevention plan. So yes, we want to do all of these things, but we need to have a plan written down, a relapse prevention. Like, okay, if this happens, I'm going to do this. This is going to prevent me from doing X, Y, and Z. Right? You need to have a plan. It needs to be written out, and you should read it 3 times a day. That's how you're really going to get it into your mind, get it into your spirit, and into your physical body. That okay, I'm not going to go back here. This is the plan to help me to prevent this. Just like you have plans in place to help you prevent whatever else, just in life. You want to have a relapse prevention plan to help you to not relapse. It's going to be super important, and you want to be as specific as possible on the steps and things you need to do, right? And that can be including the things that we just talked about. So praying and fasting. It can be, okay, I'm going to do this healthy activity instead. Okay, I'm going to call this person when this happens. Just create that plan, write it down, put the steps of what you're going to do to help yourself not relapse. Now, we just talked about that, but you have to understand, be prepared for maybe having a setback, and don't get down on yourself. Do not, overly give yourself negative self-talk. Just pick yourself back up, dust yourself off, and get back to it. Right? Is the goal is not perfect. The goal is better, right? The goal is better than I was yesterday. So we want to understand that every single day we have an opportunity to be better. And so that's what we want to do. And then lastly, we want to make sure that we're celebrating those small wins. If you go 2 days, you go a week, you go a month, whatever it is that you're trying to overcome, right? You want to celebrate that time and make sure that you are rewarding yourself in a positive manner, in a healthy manner, to ensure that you are staying confident and to increase, your self-esteem. But that'll wrap it up for today. Overcoming addiction, projecting future financials. All of this stuff is so important. But I hope everybody have a blessed Monday. We are, like I said, at it. This is the beginning of the month, man. Let's make it a great month. And I'll be right here tomorrow at 7 a.m.